Ever feel like there's a more smarter, more effective way to get the results you want? Some of the most successful people use a powerful technique, go beyond superficial answers and unlock real insights. In this video, I'll share how you can use this technique to break down any problem to its core truths, helping you achieve deeper understanding and better results in anything you do. Ready to think differently? Let's jump in. This video aims to shed light on the idea that some ways of thinking are significantly more effective than others. Of all the thinking techniques I come across, this one stands out as the most essential. Today we'll be discussing the concept of thinking from first principle. First principles are the fundamental foundation elements of an idea, the smallest unit that we know to be true, which can use to build more complex concepts. I know this sounds a bit abstract at the moment, so let's dive into its history, analogy, and some example. Thinking from first principle is not a new idea. In fact, it has been a backbone of great scientists and philosopher minds for centuries. It's arguably the most consistent trait amongst history's most impactful thinkers. How can we gain more clearer, more accurate understanding of anything? Many brilliant minds throughout history have employed this method of thinking, but one particularly notable figure is Aristotle. Renowned for his systematic approach to organizing knowledge into structured categories, Aristotle was a pioneer in the field of logic reasoning. He firmly believed that every concept, no matter how complex, could be deconstructed into most basic components, which he refers to as primary elements or first principle. This approach allowed him to analyze and understand the world around him with remarkable clarity and depth, setting a precedent for future generations of thinkers and scientists. He was also one of the earliest empiricists, someone who believes that knowledge stems from experience. As one of the founding contributors to biology, Aristotle's approach was to dissect animals to observe and learn directly, then use reasoning to categorize and make sense of his observation. This process of getting knowledge through experience and then using reasoning to organize it is how we reach the first principle of any subject. Aristotle believed that we don't truly know something until we understand these principles. He stated, "We do not think we know a thing until we are acquainted with its primary condition or first principle, and have carried out analysis as far as its simplest elements." Now that you have a bit of a background, let me give you an analogy about thinking in first principle thinking. Imagine you're building a house. The final house is visible structure, but beneath it lies a solid foundation that ensures it stands strong. A conventional thinker may view the house as a simple place to live, but a first principle thinker will start by looking at the material, the foundation, the support beam, everything that truly makes the house possible. In this analogy, the foundation parts of the house are the first principle. These fundamental elements are necessary to make the entire structure sound. Without them, the house may look like a house but lack the stability to endure. For a concrete example, consider cooking a dish from scratch. If you want to create a truly remarkable dish, you need to understand its necessary ingredients and techniques. A first principle thinker will want to know the role of each ingredient, why specific steps are necessary, and how to optimize them. In contrast, a conventional thinker just follows a recipe without considering how each step or ingredient contributes. By breaking it down with these basics, a first principle thinker can modify, improve, or create an entire new recipe. This approach, dissecting something to its core parts, isn't just limited to cooking or construction. Let's consider another example, learning a new skill like playing the guitar. A conventional learner may memorize songs by rote, focus reproducing what they hear. A first principle thinker, however, will seek to understand how the guitar produces sound, the role of each string, chord theory, and how various techniques produce different effects. By doing so, they can create music, not just replicate it. Let's examine the process of writing an essay from first principle. A well-written essay is like a delicious fruit. It's enjoyable to consume and yet challenging to produce without understanding its fundamental. We can identify this fundamental by breaking the essay down into its fundamental part. At its core, an essay is a collection of paragraphs. Each paragraph in turn comprises a series of sentences. A sentence is composed of words. Words are made up with letters, and letters are the fundamental building blocks of an essay. Once we understand these components, we can improve each one from the simplest to the most complex. By making each individual component remarkable, the entire essay becomes remarkable. This is the essence of first principle thinking. Let's explore the benefits of understanding an idea to its fundamental components. This deep down allows us to arrange and modify or combine these elements to create a new idea or product. For instance, in our writing example, we could extend beyond the essay level and consider a collection of essays as a book. By inventing this new layer, we create something novel. Understand the fundamental component also enable targeting improvements. Once we identify the essential parts of an essay, we can refine each element to enhance the overall quality. Without this knowledge, fully understanding becomes impossible. Grasping the fundamental component of an idea also facilitates the integration of new knowledge. Consider the writing process. Mastering letters leads to forming words, which then allows for constructing sentences. From there, you can create paragraphs, essays, books, and eventually entire library. Furthermore, grasping these fundamental components facilitate the communication of complex ideas. You can begin with the simplest element and gradually build up a technique widely employed in education. For instance, we start by teaching children the alphabet before progressing towards a more intricate structure. So, how can someone become a first principle thinker? It's simple, though not easy. Here's one piece of advice inspired by Aristotle. Create mental maps or a hierarchy like we did with the essay example. Most ideas are interconnected, and a first principle thinker seeks to understand how these connections form a structure of hierarchies. As Aristotle, like all emperors, would like to say, knowledge begins with experience. The world around us is filled with complex creation. To uncover the root of this creation, we need to start with a question like why or how. Our truth seeking is never satisfied with surface level understanding. They keep digging until they reach the most basic fundamental truths they can identify. One of the best ways to discover this fundamental is to organize your understanding visually. For example, by creating a mind map or a hierarchy in the field you're curious about. When I was first learning how to become a better thinker, I realized I needed to master this skill to truly exceed at anything. This video will show you how to become a truly great at thinking from first principle.